Almost 100 years ago, South Korea's top hunter, Min Seo, was mysteriously transported to a monster-infested realm right after he and his disciples defeated the Demon King on Earth. The only way for him to return to Earth is by defeating a dragon-like monster that contains a core inside its body. A core that could help him to teleport back to his home planet after battling for years. Siwoo finally takes down the monster, which is all thanks to his legendary healing abilities, and acquires the core for himself. As soon as he gulps the stone down, he is ready to sail back to Earth, ready to reunite with his disciples and little brother. In the next moment, he opens his eyes in a lush green forest. He didn't come back alone. There's this mysterious being occupying him, which lives inside his guts, and its name is Frey. He gets back on his feet looking around, but he doesn't recognize this place at first glance, which of course surprises Frey. I mean, how does this dude not recognize his own home? That's just weird. But see, Wu reminds his companion that Earth's landscapes vary depending on the location. He then focuses on the flow of mana around him, suspiciously similar to being inside a gate. Checking his own manner, he quickly realizes something frustrating. His stats have been nerfed again. Dimensional travel always seems to have side effects. The first time he was sent from Earth to another world, 100 years ago, his stats plummeted. And now it seems like the same story. Right now, he only has 20% of his former power, which is beyond frustrating. Even Frey is pissed. He wants Siwoo to recover as soon as possible. Otherwise, he won't be able to use his awesome skills. But Siwoo is just as annoyed because regaining his lost strength is going to take at least a decade. Hearing this, Frey straight up wants to cancel their contract. With Siwoo's current pathetic manner, he's basically useless to him. As they bicker back and forth, the scene cuts to a woman, panting heavily as she runs for her life, chased by an orc. She's completely lost track of her teammates and has no clue what to do. More importantly, she has yet to figure out why in the hell there's an orc this early in the dungeon. She suddenly stumbles over her feet and trips. But before the orc can rip her apart, my guy Siwoo rocks that bastard with a single punch. And the best part is that he doesn't even bother looking in the orc's direction. That's how insignificant the threat is to him. Siwoo turns to the girl, wanting her to confirm whether the planet they're currently on is Earth. The already spazzed out girl manages to give a positive response. So he follows up with another question, asking if this is Korea and what year it is. Once again, the girl confirms with a yes, and further clarifies that it's the year 2037. The mention of 2037 gets our boy thinking. He remembers that when he got sucked into that other dimension, it was 2027 if he is thinking right. Then 100 years in the demon realm was only 10 years on Earth. Then proceeds to ask the name of the current president. The girl responds saying it's Choi Dae-soo. This leaves Siwoo absolutely stunned, because as it turns out, he knows this guy, and judging by his expression, he doesn't seem to remember President Choi Dae-soo in good terms, as he mumbles all sorts of weird stuff under his breath. The girl starts wondering if this nutcase is just role-playing as a regressor. Siwoo then turns to her with another question. Since the flow of mana here feels off, he wants to confirm if they are inside a gate. The girl quickly affirms this and further elaborates that they're inside the tutorial tower. Siwoo has never heard of this tutorial tower concept, so the girl proceeds to spill all the details. The tower appeared a few years ago, acting as a gateway for hunters. If you clear it, you awaken your abilities and gain skills. And the higher your awakening rank, the better your privileges, like getting recruited by the most powerful guilds. So naturally, everyone is rushing to clear the tower as soon as possible. Siwoo clearly remembers that back in his day, the Awakened just got their powers without all this extra crap. From what he understands, all he has to do is clear the tower to get out of here. So he asks her how long that usually takes. The girl explains that on average, it takes about 8 weeks. But if you're skilled enough, you can clear it in at least 6 weeks. The current record holder is a second-generation genius hunter Ru Ji-wan, who cleared it in just 3 weeks. But my guy is not that amazed or surprised. They suddenly sense the presence of something huge nearby, and soon enough, a giant mutated tiger appears, a creature known as the troll tiger. While the girl panics at the sight of this terrifying beast, Sue is still lost in thought, contemplating the record holder. To him, clearing the tower in 3 weeks isn't impressive at all. It's far too long. But since his own abilities have been nerfed, he's not sure if he can do it any faster either. Meanwhile, the tiger is swishing its tongue around its lips, ready to make a snack out of the duo. Eventually, the tiger lunges at them. But Siwoo is still deep in contemplation, thinking about how he'll approach the trial tower. Not wanting his train of thought to be interrupted, he simply punches the giant cat, without even moving or looking back at the threat. And that one punch literally breaks the creature's jaw. Finally, Siwoo comes to terms with himself and decides that 5 days. This story takes place in an academy. There, Ian Precus is a regular student, enrolled in the Department of Swordsmanship. 3rd year, meanwhile, his friend Celine Haster is enrolled in the Department of Knights. 2nd year, then there's the 3rd guy, Leto Einstern, who is also in the Department of Swordsmanship 3rd year. Being average academy students, the biggest worrying for them is the usual stuff, like low grades, exams, and all that student stress. To forget about all of it, Ian and his male friend rely on a little bit of booze. After having a good time with his friends, Ian heads back and falls asleep. As his slumber deepens, his mind drifts into the realm of dreams. There he sees a battlefield littered with enemy corpses, and in the midst of it all stands a mysterious figure who oddly resembles Ian. The figure claims that Delphorum is coming, and they must stop him. Ian finally wakes up when morning strikes. The name Delphorum lingers in his mind. He's heard this name in legends before. He decides not to think too much about it and dismisses it as just a weird dream because he drank too much the night before. That's when he suddenly notices a letter on his table that definitely wasn't there before. Another strange thing he notices is that the date on his calendar has changed. It's now 7 days ahead. He picks up the letter and starts reading it from the handwriting. He can tell it's definitely written by a woman. Without even finishing the letter, Ian starts to imagine it's from some girl who has a crush on him. He might be late for class, but he's sure reading this letter will be worth it. However, after reading it, he realizes the only beautiful thing about it is the handwriting. While the sender did claim to be his fiancée, The contents of the letter are seemingly unusual. Everything written seems abstract. In the last page, he learns that the letter is from someone named Sophia from the year 570, one of the imperial calendar, on the 15th day of the month of the bow. The funny thing is that the dates on the letter don't match with the calendar. And another striking detail is the highlighted message at the end of the letter, which goes like, "If we don't protect the future, the world will perish." Annoyed, Ian crumbles the letter and tosses it into the trash, thinking it just a prank. As he walks through the crowd of students, he notices everyone is trying to avoid him, as if he's caught some contagious disease that only he can spread. They're murmuring under their breath and constantly giving him weird stares while keeping their distance. He also notices that for some mysterious reason, he's now carrying an axe. Then he spots his friends Leto and Celine, but even they quickly turn on their heels and start ignoring him. They act like they don't know him. Ian calls out to them, wondering if they can't see him or if they're just trying to ignore him. Leto suddenly begins to examine Ian closely. As far as Leto remembers, something about Ian was different just yesterday. Meanwhile, Ian has no idea why everyone is treating him so weirdly, and he wants answers after a thorough examination. Leto wells up with tears of happiness and tries to hug Ian. Ian is even more lost now and demands clarification. That's when Celine reveals that Ian had been possessed by something strange. The entire past week, this comes as a huge shock to Ian, because as far as he remembers, the last thing he did was say goodbye to both of them the previous night. So how in the world did an entire week? This story is about a lone adventurer who broke a taboo. A diary of certain noblemen once said, "Devouring monster is a taboo in this world for a human. To eat monsters means to take in their evil essence. The first symptom that appears upon absorbing it is a feeling of elation that cannot be expressed by mere words, accompanied by strengthening of the body. The second symptom is severe headaches, nausea and intoxication. The third symptom is sudden death, or possibly they could turn into monsters themselves after consuming the evil essence." Frontier City. Bologna is a territory home to multiple labyrinths. Among those labyrinths, there is one called the Miasma Labyrinth. The air inside this labyrinth chips continuously away at the status of visiting adventurers. This specific labyrinth is hated by other adventurers, but our protagonist always visits it. Before he knew it, he was getting recognized as the Miasma Scavenger. Like always, he's on another raid exploring the labyrinth. On the 6th floor of the dungeon, he finds the miasma grass in great quantity, and this discovery seems to be a normal thing for our adventurer. The miasma grass has the effect to purify miasma and is an irreplaceable source of income. For him, though, he decides to take just what he needs. After gathering enough miasma grass, he decides to leave, but on his way out, he comes across a herd of miasma rats. Many of the monsters in Miasma Labyrinth use miasma or poison, contributing to the reasons why adventurers don't like raiding Miasma Labyrinth. However, that won't work against our protagonist. It takes him no effort to obliterate miasma rats, but when he is about to be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of rats, he is saved by a bunch of adventurers who appear to be a bit arrogant. Although he was helped by the arrogant adventurers, he didn't like how they used a surprise attack, which could have turned into a tragedy if he hadn't dodged it at the right time. One of those adventurers sneaks inside the room where Rude found miasma grass. This is where Rude realizes that these adventurers were following him all along because they wanted to harvest his spot. The adventurers deny the fact that they were following him and claim that they just happened to meet him there and save him. The tension in the room increases when the adventurers, with a high sense of pride, prepare for combat. Rude reluctantly thanks the adventurers, canceling out any potential quarrels. Sometime later, in a local restaurant called Full Belly Restaurant, the adventurer is shown to be being bullied by even more ill-mannered people. He is mocked for his inability to defeat monsters. Rude possesses a unique skill called abnormal status nullification. It's useful for exploring the miasma labyrinth, but it doesn't give him the suitable skills to defeat. Monster's something vital for adventurers, as someone who didn't have any combat skills.
The story starts like many others. Gates popped up, monsters appeared, humans awakened with new abilities. And once again, the world had finally acquired peace. But that peace was short-lived when the world faced a new trial in the form of the Red Gate, dubbed the worst disaster known to humankind, the Chaos Gate. Even with the combined strength of countless hunters, sealing the gate had become an impossible task. Just as humanity faced a crisis of extinction, 12 legendary hunters stepped forward. They defeated the catastrophe known as the Chaos Gate, becoming the heroes who saved humanity. And those 12 heroes are known as the 12 Apostles. In just a record-breaking 79 hours, the party defeated the Destruction Beast. Now humanity can rest for the next 100 years. Until the next Chaos Gate opens again. This also means that from today, it will be another 100 years before the 12 Apostles gather. Once more, everyone has their retirement plans. But it looks like one particular hunter, the Thunder Emperor, still hasn't made up his mind. By now, even his friends are curious about what he plans to do. That's when he finally expresses his desire to become a writer, a web novel author, to be specific. And so, a few months after the Chaos Gate's closure, the Thunder Emperor starts taking online lectures from a guy named Peterson. The Emperor has already begun dreaming of the bright future he's about to have in his writing career. The fever to become a writer is so intense that he even starts thinking that perhaps he was born for this. As my guy decides to finally get to work, having taken notes from Peterson's lecture, his seniors interrupt him. They think he's done enough for one day. But as much as the Emperor wants to take a breather, he's got a deadline to meet, and it's due tomorrow. There's no room to slack off. His seniors wish him good luck and leave him there in the cafe, while the Emperor eagerly prepares to dive back into his ambitious work. We notice something strange through the window, a manhole cover shaking, and then out pops a disgusting monster from the manhole. Meanwhile, my guy is diligently working, totally unaware of the horror lurking outside. He's chugging down lattes like there's no tomorrow, and the waiter just keeps bringing them. Counting this one, it's now his 18th order. The poor lady in the background is struggling to understand how a single dude can drink this much. To give himself the adrenaline rush he needs, he puts on his headphones and plays his favorite playlist. And with that, he's ready to pour out all the creativity he can muster. At the same time, that monster finally crawls out of the manhole and starts wreaking havoc. Chaos erupts and people are getting beaten down by the giant monster, but our boy is still blissfully unaware, music blasting in his ears. He is almost done with his script. The only thing left is the final touches. After spending a short while polishing his work, the Emperor is now just one key press away from finalizing it. But before he can press that one last damn key, the monster obliterates the cafe's glass wall, sending his laptop and everything he had flying through the air. All bro wanted was to finalize his work, but now his laptop is on the ground, split into 2 pieces. His hands tremble as he reaches for it. But all he can do is feel pure remorse for his lost manuscript. This also makes him go absolutely bananas with rage. And without even moving from his spot, he electrocutes the hell out of that tentacle monster, frying it to a crisp like it's no big deal. But even after roasting the monster, the Emperor still isn't satisfied. He wants this damn thing to get back up, because he hasn't even started cooking it properly yet. Let's have a little flashback as to how the Emperor ended up in this cafe scene. Transition somewhere else. A crazy lady is lounging on a couch, munching on chips, while watching an exciting movie on TV. Her name is Hong Young-tae Wazyo. She's an S-rank hunter, and also the older sister of our boy. Speaking of our boy, he is the youngest of the 3 Thai siblings, and his real name is Tai Dajon. Dajon doesn't seem thrilled to see his useless sister slacking off like this. Now that we know Dajon, let's get a little background on Tai Wiseo. She's one of the country's top S-rank hunters, and the captain of the 7th Division of Guardian, a top-ranking guild not only that, but with her delicate looks, an impeccable fashion sense, she's a superstar in the hunter world. But right now she looks nothing like the elegant, badass lady everyone imagines her to be. Ijon takes the TV remote and changes the channel, instantly sending her into an absolute frenzy. Like an obnoxious iPad brat, she's furious that he's ruining her precious day off. But Yejin reminds her that, as a self-employed freelancer, she technically has no work to take a break from. Since she is at home, he wants her to help with the housework. If she doesn't like that, then she should at least go outside and get some exercise. As the siblings bicker back and forth, Ejin's phone suddenly rings, catching both of their attention. When he checks the notification, they both learn that a sudden gate has appeared in Mapo District Seoul. The TV news blares the same report. Due to the unexpected gate appearance, the area has been designated as a red zone, and everyone is advised to stay indoors if possible. Citizens already outside are urged to take shelter. Immediately hearing this, Yuseo decides to head out. Her brother questions whether she received an official summon message, to which she responds with a no. She's going on her own accord because she thinks it's better to stop the catastrophe beforehand. As soon as she takes off those goofy-ass glasses, she suddenly transforms into the stunning hunter we've all heard about. Even the Jun can't help but take note of how effortlessly cool his sister looks. But he reassures her that there's no need for her to step outside because he, a flop and unemployed writer, just so happens to be nearby running errands. And that's how one simple decision led the Jun to lose everything he had poured his heart into. With his laptop in pieces, the hard drive is completely shattered. No hope of reviving his lost manuscript. What makes it even more painful is that it was supposed to be his debut work. He was so sure that with his first novel, he'd hit it big, make a dazzling debut as a super rookie in the web novel industry. As a popular writer, he'd win this year's web novel award, hold lectures, and finally enter his prime. But now all those dreams exist only in his head, failing miserably to materialize into reality. So, to blow off some steam, he's absolutely looking forward to grilling more than just a few octopuses. He's gonna make damn sure these little critters know they messed with the wrong guy. Now his sights are set on the boss monster, and it's only a matter of time before he makes an example out of it, showing the world why messing with him is a terrible idea. Meanwhile, across the city, personnel have already begun neutralizing the threat. The Team 1 unit dispatched to the area has successfully cleared out most of the monsters and ensured the safe evacuation of all civilians. The soldiers are now ready to march ahead and eradicate the remaining monsters. Only a few critters remain, and once they're dealt with, they'll be free. They find it exciting how smoothly they've handled this threat, especially since it's categorized as a sudden gate, which is known to pose a major challenge. But then again, the reason for their easy victory is apparent. Bulldozer Masioki is on their team. Masioki is a jacked beast from the Emergency Response Unit, Guardia's 4th Division, an A-rank hunter with a no-nonsense attitude. He sharply orders his team to stop the chit-chat. The boss monster could appear at any moment, and they still haven't taken it down. One soldier isn't worried at all. After all, they have an A-rank hunter on their side, so how could they possibly fail? But Sayoki reminds them to stay vigilant. He knows the monster can strike from anywhere, at any time. Then, a massive dragon with multiple heads appears. The creature is so huge that the buildings around it look insignificant. In comparison, it slams its enormous reptilian tail onto the ground with such force that it causes a massive impact, instantly crushing one soldier who's unlucky enough to be in the way. Just to blink, and the man's reduced to a bloodied pulp. Sayoki is utterly stunned. He's never seen anything like this before. The monster they're facing is no ordinary beast. It's a Hydra, a boss monster with the AAA rank. The soldiers open fire with everything they have, but it's clear that their weapons are nothing more than a minor inconvenience to the monster. The creature obliterates buildings with a single swing of its tentacle. Sayoki is left petrified. A AAA rank monster coming out of an A-rank gate is unheard of. He knows they need reinforcements. Without it, they have no chance of surviving. The Hydra unleashes a blast of purple fire, and the soldiers brace for impact. But Sayoki swoops in just in time, shielding his team from the deadly attack. Just after blocking a single attack, he looks visibly exhausted. He knows they have to buy time until reinforcements arrive. The problem is, one head of the Hydra is already a class, and if all 9 heads attack, survival is unlikely. But Soki refuses to give up. If there are people to save, and if he still has the strength, he will fight for them at the cost of his own life. So, Soki does what any brave hero should. He leaps into the air and crashes down like a goddamn meteor, using his trump card to take down 2 of the monster's heads. It's a small victory, but it's not enough to neutralize the threat completely. One of the Hydra's heads fires another purple blast, and Soki is directly in its path. The attack takes him down and he's out of commission. The Hydra isn't done yet though. It raises all its heads, gathering energy to form a massive fireball. Sayoki, battered and bruised, knows if Tato stop it, the entire area will be wiped out. But then a bolt of lightning streaks across the sky, striking the monster's fireball and causing it to fizzle out. Sayoki is still in awe, watches as the lightning dissipates the threat, and standing in front of him is none other than Thunder. Emperor Rajon is absolutely furious. He was just one click away from finishing his manuscript, only for these monsters to ruin it all. The boss monster powers in fear as Yajin's radiant aura fills the area. Confused and desperate, it charges toward its demise. Yejin, on the other hand, is determined to make an example out of it. So he swings his hand through the air and delivers a solid slap to one of the monster's face. Not just one slap after slap, until the creature is reeling. And just when it seems like the monster might have had enough, Jun delivers his final crushing blow. A lightning strike so powerful that the Hydra is fried to a crisp. But even after obliterating this massive creature, Agent Anga isn't satisfied. He's still furious about his manuscript deadline. As the surviving soldiers begin to recover, they are confused by what just happened. They can see the monster has been subdued, but they're also worried about their captain. Sayoki is barely conscious but still alive, and the team rushes to him. They also notice the lifeless Hydra's body, and upon closer inspection, they spot a massive groove on one of its heads. It looks like someone struck it with incredible force.
Remember anything from the past week? They're annoyed because he's been treating them like servants this whole time, and now his reputation is ruined because of his awful behavior. They even considered taking him to an exorcist if he hadn't threatened them with an axe. Speaking of the axe, Ian curiously grabs it in his hands, completely confused about how it even ended up there. His friends quickly get hit with PTSD from the past week and just tell him to put the axe away. Meanwhile, all these brutal truth bombs start to weigh heavily on our boy. The fact that he was possessed by an evil spirit doesn't sit well with him. What makes it worse is that he doesn't recall being near any dangerous places or objects, so how could he have been possessed? Out of the blue, he starts to entertain the idea that it might be connected to that nightmare he had last night. His friends are relieved that whatever possessed him is finally gone, and thankfully it's gone before Ian could cause any more trouble than he already has. Hearing this, Ian curiously asks if he did something terrible. They agree that he did do some pretty terrible stuff. In fact, it was so crazy that he might not even be ready to hear it. He beat the second year's top student. Yes, you heard that right. Ian defeated the second year's top student, the very student hailed as the youngest aura expert, the same student who's been referred to as the monster swordswoman. Among the second years, her name is Syria Yordina. Ian is literally struggling to believe he beat that monster of a woman. As if that wasn't enough, Celine reveals that the defeat he handed her was so bad and humiliating that she had to be hospitalized for an entire week. Ian starts questioning what kind of evil spirit possessed his body to make that happen. Well, they're not sure either. But Celine reminds him that that's all in the past now, and they need to focus on the present. She asks him what he plans to do about his swordsmanship class today, because today he's supposed to face that very monster woman once again. The scene then transitions to the recent past, where Syria can be seen struggling against Ian. He's staring her down with those deadly glares, slapping her hard across the face and sending her tumbling backwards. He follows up with another brutal attack. Bro is beating the hell out of her, disregarding any offensive misogyny. The students around them are in utter awe. As far as they can remember, Syria was virtually undefeated until this moment. Even the fourth-year students had a hard time defeating her. But Ian is handling her like it's nothing possessed. Ian stands right in front of her, towering like the Sigma he has become. He finds it pathetic that, despite intentionally leaving openings for her, she falls for them and attacks without thinking. What's worse, she didn't even seem suspicious of the trap he had lured her into in the present. Ian is dreading the fight ahead. Out of everyone, why does he have to fight Syria? It would have been fine if he were up against someone he could actually defeat. But now, he's about to face the Academy's unbeatable student. Syria Ardina. Celine suggests Ian call it quits while he still has the chance. Meanwhile, other students start egging Syria on, telling her to give her best. They recall how badly she lost before, but she's still determined to fight and won't let it go. The professor always covers for her because she's strong, which is why she's under so much peer pressure. She wants her name as the strongest swordswoman. To keep flourishing, the teacher decides to commence the match. But before doing so, he reminds everyone that this match serves as a substitute for their class, and it will affect their grades. Well, that's not a good sign for our boy. While he had no problem getting defeated, the thought that this could affect his grade is enough to make him dread the whole thing. He curses the evil spirit that possessed him. Syria is a top student, so losing a few marks shouldn't hurt her. But if Ian fails this class, He'll end up living with his parents like a NEET, something he does not want in his life. As soon as the battle begins, that feisty lady launches an attack at him, and that single hit sets him flying through the air. He crashed down hard on the ground. Just the single attack is enough to make Ian realize that he's doomed. Even if he tries to keep the battle going, he's going to end up in the hospital. But still, Ian knows that if he gives up now looking miserable, Sirio will never acknowledge the battle and will demand more, so he stands up. And as he jumps into the air to strike, he notices how much lighter his body feels, and his movements are much more precise. This only makes him curious about what could have happened to him.